All right. What's good, everybody? Come on in. It's been a while, hasn't it? Feels like it's been a long time since I've done one of these. I guess it hasn't been that long. It's been about a week. But still, got a lot of cool stuff to talk about. Glad you're all here. Welcome to another episode of A Fresh Perspective with Jeff Charles, where we prefer principles over politics and truth over narrative. Tonight's episode is going to be good stuff. So come on in. All right. Glad to see you. Now, before I get into everything, please make sure that you like this video. Be sure to share this video. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, you need to do that right now. All three of these things that I just said, liking, sharing, and subscribing, it's just a click of a button. Only takes a second. So help your brother out, help your boy out, and let's get this video shared and liked. Help me out with the algorithms. If you want to support my work, you can join my online community at afreshperspective.locals.com. Only $5 a month, and you'll get access to premium content, and I will be getting caught up with all of that this week. I promise. I'm going to make myself do it. And also, if you want to do a one-time donation, if you like my content, if you get something out of it, or if you just think my hair is great or something, I don't know, you can do that here. And also, you can do super chats as well. So every little bit helps, and I really appreciate it. I also want to remind you that LibertyNation.com is a proud sponsor of A Fresh Perspective with Jeff Charles. Check out LibertyNation.com for all of your conservatarian news, original articles and analysis, videos, podcasts, Liberty Nation Radio, and their signature TV program, The Conservative 5, all on LibertyNation.com. Conservative news where truth matters. So I just got back from Miami. In case you didn't already know, I was participating in the Solutionary Summit that was put on by Maj Touré, Black Guns Matter, and a bunch of other folks. And it was great stuff. Loved every second of it. I had a great time. And I'll probably talk a little bit more about, some of the things that we talked about at another time. But if you missed it, you can still watch the replay. It is on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and put in Solutionary Summit 2021, and it'll bring it up for you. I was on the first panel of the day, and we talked about the media. I was with the amazing Lucas, who's awesome. It was really a pleasure to meet him in person and to participate on the panel with him. Yeah, he had a lot of great things to say. And also Rhonda Mary. And if you haven't subscribed to these YouTube channels, Amazing Lucas and Rhonda Mary, you need to do that because these are awesome folks. Their content is incredible. And we had a lot of interesting things to say about the media, which is one of my favorite topics. So definitely check that out. Let's see. You guys are already asking questions. Daniel, off topic. Last week you said that you weren't the biggest fan of DeSantis. Would you mind talking about your reservations about him? I'll do it really quick because it's not a very deep thing. And again, my verdict is still out on DeSantis. I haven't decided whether I like him or not. There's a lot of things that he does that I like. There are a lot of characteristics that he has that I appreciate. I think he has some statist tendencies that I'm not really a fan of. Like, for instance, he enacted a measure that would target companies like Ben & Jerry's who refuse to sell their products in the West Bank and Gaza Strip because they have an issue with how Israel handles things. Now, regardless of your position on Israel, I mean, to me, that's a First Amendment issue. The state should not be punishing a private company for choosing where they sell their products. Like, they shouldn't be compelled by the government to sell their products in a certain part of the world. So that's one thing. As far as the ban on mask mandates, I'm not really a fan of that. Now, this doesn't mean that I support mask mandates. If you look at some of my previous live streams, there was one where I talked about how even the CDC's study had showed that requiring masks in classrooms doesn't do much to stop the spread of the virus. So even though I don't agree with them, I still think that it should be up to local communities to decide what is best for them. And so it's kind of stuff like that that kind of makes me a little bit leery. But there are things that he's done that I do like he's been taking on China. He's been trying to take on big tech, although I don't think that what he did is actually going to do it. I mean, it might, it might, but I do like his stance on that. I love the way he handles the media. And, in general, I liked his approach to the COVID-19 situation. So again, verdict is still out. 2024 is a long ways away, so there could be somebody else that comes up. But he just has some tendencies that I'm not a fan of. He's not the only one. My governor, Greg Abbott, does too. So anytime I feel like a governor is kind of overstepping a bit, I'm not going to be very appreciative of that. Let me fix this lighting here so you guys can actually see me. But yeah, the Solutionary Summit was great. So if you didn't make this one, make sure you go to the second one. They don't know where it's going to be yet, but I'll be going. I don't know if I'll be a panelist again. Hopefully I did well enough to where they want to and invite me back. But either way, I'll be going. It's a very cool event. Maj Touré is doing an excellent job, and his whole team is doing an excellent job as far as putting that on and having the right speakers. There were a lot of interesting people there. Kwame Brown was there. Riza Islam from the Nation of Islam was there. That was interesting, especially from a conservative perspective. I might actually delve into that at some point, because that guy, obviously I have a lot of disagreements with the Nation of Islam, but there's a lot that they have in common with conservative thought, especially when it comes to Black conservatism. There were a lot of other great speakers there too. Olivia Rondeau, she was there. She always holds it down. King Randall was awesome. Got to meet him in person. It was a pleasure meeting him in person. He's a great guy. There's a lot of others who I can't think of off the top of my head. And Angela Stanton King, she was there. It was great. That whole panel, yeah, they brought the house down. And of course, my sister from another Mr. Sunny Johnson was there. Got to spend some time with her. That was incredible. And of course, anytime Sunny Johnson is involved, she's going to bring the house down. So she did not disappoint. As a matter of fact, nobody did. So yeah, it was great. And I got to learn quite a bit. So dang, you guys are already active in the chat. So let's see here. Rachel D, I watched your panel with Amazing Lucas on the live broadcast. You did great. Thank you very much. Thank you. I was hoping I would do well. I thought I did well too. I'm pretty awesome. Wendy, what's up, Red? How you doing? Cerno was just bitching about people not wearing masks to appease the people freaking out. I have asthma, so normie comfort is way down on my list of priorities. I can't blame you. So let me go ahead and get started. I can already tell this is going to be a lively group here that we have. First thing I want to talk about is what's going on in Afghanistan. Now, this entire broadcast isn't going to be on Afghanistan like my last two, but that situation is still going on. So for the foreseeable future, we're going to be talking about Afghanistan. Now, if you've been following the news, you know that the deadline for the troop withdrawal passed August 31st. And we have lots of Americans still stranded there. The Biden administration said that it was about 200, 250 or something like that. But others it's starting to seem like it might be more than that. And as far as Afghanistan's allies, the Afghan allies who helped the U.S. military while we were there, bad news on that front. And I knew this was going to happen. And anybody who was watching it knew it was going to happen. They've been left behind. And when I say they've been left behind, I mean the vast majority, thousands of people, Afghanis who helped us, have been left behind. Now, I'm going to say that again. Most of them have been left behind, stranded at Kabul and in other areas of Afghanistan, and they are at the Taliban's mercy. We know what that looks like. Now, there are still private entities, individuals, and organizations who have taken it upon themselves to try to get them out. The government isn't doing much to help with the situation, even though they promised that they would remain in contact and try to find other ways to get them out of there. But reports have come up indicating that the Biden administration is actually doing the opposite. They are making it very difficult for people who want to get Americans and Afghan allies out of Afghanistan They're making it very difficult for them to accomplish their mission. And like I said, because of the White House's incompetence, I mean, they did get 122,000 people out. But again, the way this whole thing was planned, and last time I did a live stream, I went over the main blunders that the administration made in handling this whole thing. So they essentially caused a situation to where they had to try to rush to get as many people out as possible. And of course, people were going to get left behind. And this has necessitated other people to step up. Now, there's a couple of issues here. Fox News, they reported recently on an email that was sent to a man named Eric Montalvo, who is facilitating private flight or trying to facilitate private flights out of Afghanistan. This email was sent from the State Department. So a State Department official reached out to Eric Montalvo, or actually he was responding to Eric Montalvo, because over the past few days, they've been stranded there in the airport, waiting to be able to be airlifted out of Afghanistan. Now, to a certain extent, now the Taliban isn't letting them out, or at least that's what reports have indicated. But there are other reports indicating that it's actually the State Department's fault as to why they're not getting out of there, because there are people who actually want to leave and other people who are there to try to get them out. So Eric Montalvo basically has told Fox News and other news organizations, and also other individuals have gone to the media to say that the State Department is slow walking the process as far as getting approval to get Americans out. Now, here's the thing. If we wanted to, we can just tell the Taliban, hey, I mean, unless you want us to come back in there with our military, you need to let these flights leave. And we need to figure out how to get them out and then facilitate the whole evacuation thing. But they're not doing that. Again, Biden was very adamant about abiding by the Taliban's withdrawal. Now, I get that. The Taliban's deadline for withdrawal. Now, I get that Biden's set the August 31st withdrawal, but it's not like he necessarily had to listen to what the Taliban was saying when they said no more after that. So what Eric Montalvo said is that the State Department sent him an email saying that they would not give approval for his group to fly these people out of Afghanistan and land at an airbase. And the Al Udeid, I'm probably butchering this name, Al Udeid Air Base. They say that no independent charters are allowed to land there. Quote, the military airbase you mentioned in your communication with Samantha Power. In fact, no charters are allowed to land at a Department of Defense base, and most, if not all, countries in the Middle Eastern region, with the exception of perhaps Saudi Arabia's, will allow charters to land. And this person also wrote, he also indicated that while some other countries would require approval from the State Department to allow these planes to land there, the State Department said that they weren't going to give approval. So this guy wrote, quote, once you have had discussions with the host destination country and reached an agreement, they may require some indication from the USG that we approve of this charter flight. Department of State will not provide an approval, but we will provide a no objection to the destination country government via the U.S. Embassy in that country. Which means that country might say, well, no, we want this to be approved, so we're not going to let you land here. And when it comes to getting permissions, they have been slow walking the process because these individuals have been trying to go through the normal process, whatever that is, to get approval to have these planes take off and go to a different country. Oh, and by the way, this guy also said the United States wouldn't accept these flights either. So they can't even fly these people to the United States, which is their ultimate destination. Now, I'm going to say that again. The United States of America's State Department said that these private individuals would not be allowed to fly American civilians and Afghan allies trapped in Afghanistan to American soil. Now, here's what's also kind of interesting about this, because they've also been saying, oh, well, you can also escape overland, like do an overland evacuation, which means they go by land to a different country like Iran or other countries that border Afghanistan. And it turned out that 4 people actually were able to do that. There were 4 Americans who were able to escape to a different country. I don't know what country that was. I don't even know if they've released the information. And the State Department tried to take credit for that. They tried to say, oh, we facilitated their escape out of Afghanistan over land. Yeah, that ain't what happened. The State Department had very little to do with those 4 Americans getting out of there. It was later revealed that it was a guy named Corey Mills, who is a veteran, a decorated veteran. I believe he got the Bronze Star. And he's also a congressional candidate in Florida's 7th district, I believe. But it was later revealed that it was him and his team who got those 4 people out of there. And I'm going to be talking about a conversation that Corey Mills had with none other than CNN's Chris Cuomo about this whole thing, because he also recently came out last night talking about how the State Department is actively trying to make it more difficult for people like him to get Americans out of Afghanistan. Now, on September 2nd, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki and a State Department spokesman named Ned Price, they claimed that the Biden administration was not keeping planes from flying out of the airport. But Price did point out that allowing these charter flights could carry certain security risks. So here's what he said. He said, quote, if these charters are seeking to go to a U.S. military installation, for example, we have to weigh not only the threat to those who may be on board, especially if they're American citizens, LPRs, or other Afghans to whom we have a special commitment, but also to the safety and security of State Department personnel, U.S. military personnel, Department of Homeland Security personnel, and other U.S. personnel on U.S. military installations. And he continued, quote, these are among the risks that the Department of Defense, the Department of State, and the host government, which of course has an important say in all this, must consider. So what he's saying is the reasoning that they're giving for slow walking this process is that they don't want a potential security threat. Like say if some of these Americans are in league with ISIS-K or with the Taliban or another radical extremist organization that wants to sneak people into the United States. And that sounds sensible, right? I mean, we don't need a radical Islamic terrorist sneaking into the United States through this measure. But during his conversation with Chris Cuomo, Mills actually addressed this. Now I'm going to play the footage from Chris Cuomo, which, by the way, Chris Cuomo was pretty fair when he did this whole thing. I would encourage you to watch the entire clip. I'm just going to put on a snippet of it. Let's see. Oh, I know where to start. Let me go ahead and pull that up for you right now. Okay. All right. If you can't hear it, let me know. I'm going to put it on.
Republicans involved in the rescue effort, like my next guest, are telling a different story. They say the State Department actually thwarted the efforts of the veterans on the ground who are helping to get a woman and her 3 kids out. Army combat veteran Corey Mills joins me now from a bordering country with Afghanistan. We should note Mills is also a Florida congressional candidate and a Republican. Now, they're going to think I'm kind of blurring your face and kind of not, Corey. This is just the lighting. You're backlit. It's fine. And I appreciate you being with us, and I appreciate your efforts on the ground. What is the truth about the State Department knowledge and role in your extraction?
Well, Chris, thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I apologize for the backlighting. This is about as good as I can get from
it's
where
fine.
I'm at. So bottom line is that I think that when it comes to the amazing guys who are here in country that I'm operating out of, I think the State Department has been very helpful and supportive. I think the issue is that DC and State Department and the swamp, they're really where the problem has existed. You know, we had the ability to go in the very beginning days to land a aircraft that would have evacuated 25 Americans out that we had already identified, that we had already coordinated with. And we had already had approved PPR. We had flyover approvals. I mean, everything necessary to have put the aircraft on the ground, had an hour's time on the ground, could have loaded our staff that were just out, our team, excuse me, that were just outside the gates, got them in, got them on, and got them out. And that was the original plan. That was thwarted by the State Department and the DOD, where they essentially tried to deny our PPR, put us in pattern for almost 15 minutes, and then even said that if you land this aircraft, that we're going to go ahead and take the aircraft certificate, we're going to ground the pilots, and then even have an F-16 go ahead. I mean, look, the bottom line is that would have been 25 Americans, so that this land bordering crossing wouldn't have even been necessary if they could have let us land at that time. On the second occasion, where we finally had to get these families out of Kabul and into a different location, they were manifested on another aircraft. That aircraft had been approved by the Taliban, had been approved by the DOD, had been approved by the State Department. And right before the nth hour, when it was ready to fly, the State Department went ahead and canceled that flight or disapproved that flight because they wanted to vet the manifest, which I can understand and appreciate. But these are Americans who are basically being left behind. Now, again, one of the statements that you made, which I completely agree with, this isn't a time to throw mud and be a political animal that says, okay, well, the left did this or the right did that. We welcome the State Department's support. We actually received some of that support when we were in this bordering country, once we were kind of on that 99-yard line. I think that the amazing guys that I've been able to be on this team with, I don't lead this team, I'm not the organizer, but I am a member of this team. And what we've been able to do here, I think sets the, white paper, the proof of concept, that with a little bit of help from the U.S. government, I think that it's joint, kind of public-private partnership that could help these Americans to get out.
Okay, so you heard what Corey Mills said there. I mean, in that second occasion that he was talking about, they had approvals from everybody, including the Taliban, to get 25 Americans out of Afghanistan. And at the last minute, the State Department shut it down. And again, supposedly because they wanted to vet the people who were on there. Now, on one level, I understand that. But later during this interview, and I didn't want to play the whole thing because it's like 8 minutes long, so you can definitely check it out on your own. But later in the interview, Corey Mills says, quote, when we worked with the State Department here in this certain country, the country where, they were getting people to, he said, quote, we provided passport photos. We allowed them to try and check the biometrics. We had done all of our due diligence. We identified where and which district these individuals were from. For example, they are from Texas District 13. And he says, quote, yeah, I understand that there is a near far recognition piece of this. And I understand that we can't allow any type of terrorist to get onto aircraft or try to get across borders at the help or behest of any of the Americans. But he also said that there is, quote, a relatively easy way for us to go ahead and gather necessary documents and then allow them to vet before getting them out of the country. So that's not the excuse that the State Department thinks it is. Now, again, this could be just huge incompetence, why they didn't have this set up beforehand, why they weren't actually vetting these people beforehand, or why they didn't have their ducks in a row. But you have to ask, why are they doing this, basically? I would think that this would be very politically deadly for the Democrats to do this. And I'm going to put on my cynical hat. And I could be wrong, but cynical Jeff says that they're doing this because it's an embarrassment to the Biden administration. The fact that private organizations and private individuals had to step up to clean up their mess is an embarrassment. And if these people are actually able to succeed, it will make the embarrassment even worse because they will have done what the most powerful government in the world couldn't do, or wouldn't do, I should say. And I could see how this would be a humiliation that they would rather avoid. But here's the thing, they can't stall this thing forever. The longer these people remain in Kabul, the more danger they could be in. The Taliban, I'm not trying to defend the Taliban here, but the Taliban has kind of been holding back. And they're not doing that because they've reformed or because they're good. They don't want the consequences of having taken an American hostage or killed an American. And again, there are reports that they were kind of holding up this process too. I'm not sure how much they were, but what happens if somebody from the Taliban decides to kill one of the Americans, or ISIS-K does another suicide bombing? If that happens, this situation gets much worse. And I'm really praying and hoping that this doesn't happen. But I would think that Biden's team would realize that if it did, it would create a situation that they wouldn't be able to recover from politically. But again, they might already be in that situation anyway because of how bad the situation has been handled. So just wanted to give you an update on that. Well, what do you guys think of the whole thing? Am I off base? Let's go. Let's see. All right. Afghanistan outrage is too much. Trump would have had some of the same troubles Biden has had. I don't disagree with that. I do think that Trump would have handled it better, because even in the plan that he had laid out, his plan was to get everybody out and then remove the troops. And I think most Americans would have been willing to wait for that, because no American's going to say, no, get them out now and just screw whoever's left there. They would have preferred that. But here's the thing. No matter who the president is, this situation was never going to go perfectly, right? I mean, people know that saying that's used in the military: no battle plan survives contact with the enemy. So even the best plans would have had some snags. And so I expected there to be some snags. And if there were just a few snags along the process, but things still went overall well, and people were criticizing Biden about it, I would be defending him. As a matter of fact, when it looked like things were starting to get bad, I wanted to defend Biden. Because again, I'm going to give him credit for actually doing this in the first place. But the way he's done it could have easily been avoided. Those 13 service members that died didn't have to die. That could have been avoided. And it was him and his team's ridiculous decisions that led to that. Let's see. The difference would have been Trump administration would have prioritized Americans over Afghan refugees. That's true too. Actually, I think any president would have done that. I mean, you do prioritize Americans over other people, but the thing is, that shouldn't have even been a situation. There's no excuse for leaving the vast majority of Afghan allies in that country, where they will be targeted, captured, and executed if they are found out. So hopefully there is some plan for getting those people out there, because again, we do have a commitment to them. And it would be immoral to just allow them to get killed because we didn't feel like doing things the right way. But again, like I've said in other live streams, this is what we do. We sell our allies out. Trump did it with the Kurds in Syria. He's not innocent. He did that as well. Did it during the Bay of Pigs. We've done this throughout our history, where we'll prop certain people up and we'll say, yeah, we're going to be there for you. And then we leave them holding the bag. Hopefully, I mean, I really hope we turn this thing around, but I'm not optimistic. Let's see what else we got here. You should see the Fort Bliss Donna Ana range north of El Paso. Thousands of Afghan refugees are getting vetted there. No idea what to do with them. I still have not formed a firm opinion on this. Yeah, I mean, and we definitely need to be vetting them. I mean, I understand to a certain extent where the State Department is coming from, because if there was a terrorist that slipped through and they didn't vet them properly, guess what we would be saying right now? Why didn't they vet these people? So I understand that. I do. At the same time, it seems like there are ways to do it in a way that's that would allow for this to go more smoothly. As far as refugees, obviously, if they're not affiliated with any terrorist groups, I actually have no problem with bringing them over here, especially if they were helping the United States military. If they went through the right process, or if they were helping our military, I have no problem with it. I know some people on the right don't want them here. I'm sorry, that bringing over the refugees is not going to harm our country. I'm sorry. We're realistically, we're not going to bring enough over to where it's going to tank our nation or people are going to suffer from it. The only way that we'll suffer is if we don't vet them properly. The United States will not do anything militarily to the Taliban under President Biden. Unfortunately, I think you might be right. You know what's interesting? I was actually, side note, I watched an interview with Charlie Rose with Biden when he was a senator the day after 9/11. And he was way more hawkish than he is acting right now. It's just interesting to see how things have changed over the past couple decades. But he was talking about how, we don't, if we have to go into Afghanistan or go, he wasn't even talking about Afghanistan yet because they weren't telling us at that point who actually did it. Because again, it was the day right after. But he was saying we'll do this unilaterally. We'll fight. If people were harboring him, then we're going to deal with them too. And now he doesn't have any spine. It's very interesting. All right. So I'm going to go on to the next thing here, which is the Texas abortion ban. And before I do that, I'm just going to remind you to go over to libertynation.com. In fact, the article that I'm about to go over, as far as it relates to the Texas abortion ban, is written by none other than Scott Cosenza, Esquire, about the Supreme Court's refusal to get involved with the Texas abortion ban, the legislation that they passed earlier this year. It just took effect this month. But I'm not going to read the whole article, so you have to go over to libertynation.com to read the whole thing. You can read the stuff that I write over there. You can read all of it. You can sign up for the member zone. You can get the daily briefing. There's a lot to do over at Liberty Nation. You can check out their YouTube channel as well. And again, like I always say, Liberty Nation is great for those who aren't really big fans of outrage porn. It's got a conservatarian bent to it. Some of the writers are more libertarian, some are ANCAP, some are more traditional conservatives. You get it. If it's right wing, you're going to get some of it there. So definitely check that out. You're going to get more nuance. You're going to get more thoughtful pieces, and you're going to get writing that is designed to make you think and not just designed to make you click. So great stuff. And I'm not just saying that because I write for them. I'd be saying that even if I didn't, because it's true. Now, let's talk about abortion. So, as you know, there's a big fear over abortion because of this law that went into effect this month. It was raging all over the week, and I didn't really get to keep up with it that much because I was at the Solutionary Summit. I was in Miami from last Thursday to yesterday. I got back, and I've had a chance to kind of catch up on it, and there's a lot of hubbub over the bill or over the legislation and actually how it even works. I do think at some point this is going to make it to the Supreme Court, which will be very interesting. But it's kind of also interesting how they approach this. Now, again, Governor it's often referred to as the heartbeat. I believe that there are other states that have their own heartbeat bills that are similar. But according to Scott Cosenza, quote, SB 8 is one of the most comprehensive abortion bans in the entire nation. It prohibits all abortions absent an exception to save the mother's life once fetal cardiac activity is detected. So what this means is that unless a mother's life is in danger, it will ban all abortions in which the baby's heartbeat is able to be heard. And so he also writes that the law has survived challenges through the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, and also thanks to a rare midnight ruling, the Supreme Court, which voted 5-4 to deny an emergency appeal to stop the law from going into effect. Now, most of the justices declined to block the law, but of course, Chief Justice John Roberts sided with the more left-leaning judges, and he wrote a whole thing about it. And part of what he wrote said, quote, case in point, Texas's prohibition on abortion has been on the books since 1854. When the Supreme Court held the Texas law unconstitutional in Roe versus Wade, that stopped enforcement, but the law was still on the books. Pro-life legislators successfully amended the existing law with the heartbeat component. The change made it newly enforceable, and with the kick, private persons could bring cases to do so. So I'm going to explain further what Chief Justice John Roberts is talking about here. So Scott writes, quote, SB 8 contains a private cause of action, which, as the name suggests, is a legal provision that allows private individuals, not the state, to enforce a law. The provision creates standing to sue for anyone at all who can allege a violation. Standing is a crucial legal hurdle to clear before any suit gets heard. So the grant here is staggering. Anyone may sue an abortion provider or support personnel who helps a woman obtain an abortion prohibited by SB 8. Now, the term standing is important here. And just for those who don't know what standing means, and I actually asked Scott about this, so just to make sure that I understood it correctly. I did, but I just wanted to double check. If you're filing a lawsuit, you can't file a lawsuit unless you have what they call standing, which means is basically the right to be in court and be involved in the lawsuit. So, for instance, if a friend of mine goes, or if somebody goes and steals my friend's car and crashes it, I can't sue that guy for what he did to my friend's car because I don't have standing. Because in this instance, it didn't happen to me. Even though the guy was wrong and deserves to be sued, I can't collect any damages because he didn't do anything to me. Now, in this situation, the way the legislation is worded and the provisions that are included in the legislation, it gives anybody in Texas standing to file a lawsuit against anybody who helps a woman have an abortion that violates the law. So basically, if they somehow gain knowledge of an abortion provider terminating a pregnancy where the heartbeat was able to be heard, then somebody like myself or another Texas resident can file that lawsuit. Now, Cosenza also points out, quote, suing isn't free. So to sweeten the pot, the legislators added a financial guarantee to those who would enforce the law by private cause of action. Anyone who successfully sues an abortion provider will be entitled to at least $10,000 and a court order preventing the provider from performing abortions in the future. So it doesn't outright ban abortion. It also doesn't give the state the right to enforce this. It gives instead private citizens the right to take a civil suit, to file a civil suit against a provider. Now, this created a huge issue, right? I mean, you had companies like Lyft and I think Uber come out saying, because what the opponents were saying was like, well, what if there's an Uber driver and a mother uses that service to go to Planned Parenthood and terminate a pregnancy where the heartbeat can be heard? Can that driver be sued? That's not realistic, right? That's not going to happen. The Lyft came out because they wanted to virtue signal, and they said that if any driver is sued for this reason, then their legal fees would be paid. Now, I don't know how you would even hold an Uber driver or a Lyft driver liable, because, I mean, what if he didn't know that she was going to get an abortion? Planned Parenthood does other things. How would he know that the heartbeat can be heard? Is he supposed to actually listen to the woman's stomach himself? I mean, it's silly. But it's also, when I'm looking at this, I'm like, this is weird because it doesn't really have any teeth. I mean, I do think it's going to stop a lot of abortions, but how would somebody even be able to prove that this happened? How would they be able to know that an abortion doctor terminated a pregnancy even though the baby's heartbeat was viable? It doesn't really make much sense to me. I mean, how would they even investigate that? Would they just have to hear from word of mouth, or would the mother have to tell a friend who tells a friend, and then they find out and then they file the lawsuit? How would a private citizen realistically be able to enforce this? I think it's very unlikely that this would happen. So to me, I'm not sure that this law is going to do much. I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure it will have a chilling effect on abortion in Texas. I mean, it already kind of has, because people were trying to rush to get as many abortions in as possible before this law took effect, which is sick as hell. But that's what happens. But I'm not sure if this is even realistic as far as being able to enforce it. I could be wrong. And honestly, Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers may know that what I'm saying is true, but they might not want to take the risk. So they may not perform those abortions. I mean, I'm seeing people argue, well, a lot of people, are pregnant and don't know about it. Or what about in cases of rape or incest? Those are all valid questions. Although, and the women in the audience can correct me if I'm wrong, because I know I'm a dude, but I would think that most women would know that they're pregnant within that first 6 weeks. I know there are cases where they wouldn't. I'm not saying that all mothers would, but I would think that the majority would. You have pregnancy tests. Women start to go through some things, when they've got a bun in the oven. But what's also interesting is what's going to happen when this case eventually makes it to the Supreme Court, because it is going to. I have, even though the Supreme Court declined to intervene in this instance, I think it's going to get there. Now, Scott also talks about a previous case, or I'm sorry, a law in Mississippi that bans most abortions after 15 weeks instead of 6 weeks. Again, Texas's legislation is the most comprehensive and the most aggressive that has happened so far, or at least since Roe versus Wade. Now, he says, Professor Mary Ziegler, who's the author of a book called Abortion and the Law in America, Roe versus Wade to the Present, she wrote, quote, while Texas has tried to avoid a confrontation with Roe through its private enforcement scheme, the Mississippi case will all but force the justices to reverse or transform the court's most important abortion precedents. So this is going to be big. And I don't know if and when these cases will make it to the Supreme Court, but this ain't over. The fat lady has not sung on this. And I have no idea how this is going to go. I mean, I suspect that it may fail when it gets to the Supreme Court because of Roe versus Wade. I mean, they're trying to get around it by saying, it doesn't ban all abortions, and it's not the state. The state's not going to arrest abortion providers for doing abortions. They're leaving it in the power of the citizenry. But I'm not sure if that will be enough to allow it to survive a Supreme Court review. So what do you guys think? Let's see. All right. Omega variant. It is interesting that the Texas Democratic legislators chose to grandstand on the voting bill and only noticed the heartbeat bill after it became law. What a bizarre strategy. I wonder if that was on purpose or if they just weren't thinking this through. I mean, they could have waited to take their vacation in Washington, D.C., right? Honestly, I think it's because the Jim Crow 2.0 narrative is sexier than abortion is. I could be wrong about that, but I think that they got more attention pretending to fight for civil rights of Black Americans than they would have if they pulled that stunt for abortion. And actually, now that I think about it, they probably wouldn't have been able to, because the voting law that they were protesting was in special session. So they fled to DC to take their vacation because they wanted to prevent a vote on the voting law. So that would actually explain it better. Let's see. Yeah, that's another question. How would they know that she even took an Uber or a Lyft? I mean, it's stuff that people could find out, but I mean, I'm like, nobody's going to sue the driver. I mean, come on now. There's just no way. I mean, there's no way that they could even get anything from the driver, because the driver wouldn't know what's going on. He wouldn't be privy to her personal details, right? The only people who would know would be the mother and the providers and anybody that the mother told. That's why I don't think it's really going to go anywhere. I mean, how is it enforceable? Okay, this is a very interesting argument that we hear a lot. This law shows the hypocrisy of Christians who are loudest about government paying for social programs, WIC, food stamps, Medicare, daycare, Section 8, at the same time restricting abortions for mostly poor women. Now, here's my thing with that. Conservatives should be pushing measures or programs designed to prevent a mother from even considering abortion as an option. Even if you outlawed it, it would still happen. The government is not the best way to solve this problem. As a conservative, I believe that. I'm not necessarily saying that I disagree with legislation against abortion, but I don't believe that the government is the best way to solve it. The way you solve that is by creating the conditions under which a mother doesn't even have to consider that. Now, there are certain aspects that the government can't do, right? Like if it's a broken family, or if it's, somebody who just hooked up with somebody else and whatever, the government can't do anything about that. But I was talking with Felicia about this, Felicia Killings, on her Spaces the other day. And there are organizations in local towns that are designed to support mothers who unexpectedly get pregnant, and maybe the father isn't around and they're afraid of not being able to support their child. They provide resources. They provide job training. If they want to give their baby up for adoption, they help to facilitate that process as well, because adoption is an option as well. And a lot of these centers are successful, and they have helped a lot of mothers. But there are no national organizations that I know of that do this. Like, there is no conservative response to Planned Parenthood. There is a Planned Parenthood in every predominantly minority area in the country. Here in Austin, in East Austin, I think they have 2 in East Austin, because that's where most of the Black people live here in Austin. Black and brown, I shouldn't just say Black. But there's no national organization that works to counter that. Again, there are local organizations, people who work very hard to do this. And I have no idea why we won't push those organizations to the forefront. It got me thinking. I mean, I'll be using my platform to highlight these groups. I will be. And I've talked about these things before, and I've actually spoken to some people who have worked in those areas, or at least have been involved. When it comes to government programs, yes, we would prefer that there are conditions that make for a better economy so that people can get jobs and they don't have to be reliant on the government. Here's the thing, though. The vast majority of conservatives are not necessarily against a safety net, right? I mean, if you look at polling, if you look at studies, most conservatives, most Christians don't say there should be no welfare, there should be no Medicaid, there should be no WIC, no food stamps at all. They're concerned mainly about people abusing the system, and they are concerned about people becoming overly reliant on those systems, because that's not exactly how you pull yourself up out of poverty. But that's why that argument is flawed. Now, I will agree that Christians and conservatives and Republicans are the loudest about criticizing people who use those programs, but not really doing much to fix that problem, right? I mean, it used to be churches that used to help people out when they fall on hard times. There are still churches that do that. But I mean, if you're a Christian and you've been in the church world for a while, you know that a lot of them don't do jack for their communities. I won't say most, because I don't know that, but a lot of them don't. So churches aren't really trying to fill in that gap. I know I'm criticizing churches. Hey, I'm a Christian. I love churches. I've recently started going back to church, but that's actually one of my deal breakers. If I see that the church that I'm going to is not involved in the community, I won't go there. I'm not going to, bother with it. So, yeah, that's a very interesting argument. It is flawed because, again, most people on the right don't want to eliminate all government programs. Some like to pay lip service to that, but they don't. I mean, most of the people who use those programs are white Christians, people who live in rural areas, and also in the cities too. So it's also minorities. And I know about the whole proportionality thing. Don't get me started on that, because y'all don't want to hear that with other issues. But the thing is, if you're going to be against abortion, then yes, as conservatives, we need to come up with a way to influence the culture. Which, by the way, when it comes to opinions on abortion, I'm going to give you some data real quick. I almost forgot about this. So Gallup has been taking stock of attitudes towards abortion since Roe v. Wade. And for 2021, they found that 48% of respondents believe that abortion should be legal under certain circumstances, or also, well, actually, no, it was, let's see, 48% of people identified like as pro-choice. No, I'm getting that wrong. No, it was 52% of respondents were identified as pro-choice, while 49% or something like that identified as pro-life. The difference is only a few percentage points. So only a few percentage points more were pro-choice. But here's what is interesting, the way that breaks down. Because they also asked 4 different questions. If they measured people who believe that abortion should be legal under any circumstances, they measured people who believe that abortion should be legal only under certain circumstances, or under most circumstances. And then they measured people who believe that abortion should be legal only under certain narrow circumstances. So that would be your rape and incest and things like that. And then they measured people who believe that abortion should be illegal no matter what, under any circumstance. Now, anybody who says that abortion should be legal at least under certain circumstances could identify as pro-choice, right? But when you look at the people who think it should be illegal completely and the people who think abortion should be legal only under a few circumstances, again, rape, incest, life of the mother, that kind of thing, that percentage is actually higher than those who think that abortion should be legal under most or all circumstances. Now, the way that breaks down is, let's see, it was 52% believe that abortion should be either completely illegal or only allowable under a certain set of a few circumstances. 45% of people believe that abortion should be completely legal no matter what, or legal under most circumstances. So that tells me that most people are actually against abortion, but there are a lot who would allow it in certain situations. Again, rape, incest, life of the mother, or what have you. So it's not like this law is going to get, I mean, there's going to be people who oppose it, but it is more in line with the attitudes that Americans have here in 2021. So thought I'd just kind of give that to you. This is kind of interesting data there. I may dig into that a little bit more at some point. Let's see. I have never heard a Christian argue for Wix stamps, etc., etc. Yes. So, I mean, there's still a lot that do. If you were to ask, they'd be okay with it. That's what the polls have shown. That's what studies have shown. Now, the percentage is lower than it is among Democrats, of course, but it's still the majority. They're okay with a certain safety net. With the government providing a safety net, they just want to make sure that it's not abused and that it's not designed to keep people on it. But I still prefer private alternatives. Let's see what else we got here. Can you explain how abortion is even protected by the Constitution? Makes no sense. I don't believe it is, honestly. But yeah, you know how that goes. Single mothers on welfare should not be demonized by anyone in Texas. No, they shouldn't. I'm not down with that. Unfortunately, we still have a lot of those attitudes. I don't think it's as bad as it was in the past, but it's still there. Omega variant, I agree. I think this law is largely unenforceable, but I think it may also serve as a catalyst for other state legislation. That's possible too. Although it's hard to imagine how they'd be able to get more aggressive than this and not run afoul of Roe v. Wade. But it's possible, definitely. That's what's called pregnancy crisis centers. So that's a false talking point. There's more pregnancy crisis centers than abortion clinics, and majority are faith-based. So, and you're right, the majority of them are faith-based. Yeah, they are Christian organizations. What I'm saying though is that there's no like national like pregnancy crisis center organization that can combat Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is national. And these local centers do good work. But I would think that, if we wanted to decrease the number of abortions, if we had more of a national organization, that would only help. I think it'd be a good idea. And it makes me wonder why that hasn't happened yet. I would bet that there have been people who have tried to form one. So I don't know. But again, if you know of one, or if you know of one that may resemble that, let me know, because I'd love to dig into that. Let's see. This is an interesting thing here. I saw a Twitter argument that if we make it legal based on rape and incest, then we'll see more fake rape accusations. I still see moral issues to support it in those cases. That's an interesting argument. That is interesting. That's definitely possible. That's something to think about. This is a good point. Planned Parenthood also gets $500 million from taxpayers. Now, I do know that in Texas, the state does provide some funding for these pregnancy crisis centers. They've been passing measures to make that happen, to support initiatives designed to help mothers have an alternative to abortion, which I'm perfectly fine with. I think that's good. Then live action should be pushed as the NRA or Planned Parenthood. Live action, I don't know that much about live action, but I think you're right. I'm looking at them. Isn't that Lila Rose who runs live action? I can't remember. But anyway, I want to talk about my last thing here. And it's about that pew pew life. Now, if you've been following me on Twitter, you guys know that I announced that sometime soon, possibly by the end of the month or over the next few weeks, I will be joining the 2A community. I will be purchasing my first firearm. And it's interesting. You probably already know the data, but gun ownership has been going up and up and up and up over the past year or a couple years or so. The Washington Post put out an article in February, or I'm sorry, I think it was actually later than that, but it said that estimated firearm purchases climbed to an unprecedented 2.1 million in March. Okay, no, they were talking about March of last year, so this was written in February of this year. It climbed to 2.1 million in March of last year, which was early in the whole COVID-19 issue. And, you had people panic buying toilet paper and all this other crap, but people were also buying firearms. And then, of course, we had the George Floyd riots, all the protests, and firearm sales went up even more. 2.8 million in June of last year and 2.5 million in July. And it's funny in this article, I'm not going to really go into it because it's just so stupid. They tried to, because it also went up again at the beginning of this year. And they tried to tie it to the January 6th riots. Like people were buying extra guns because a bunch of morons went and rioted at the U.S. Capitol building. Nobody buys that. Come on now. That's not why gun ownership is going up. It was already heading in that trajectory. It's not because of the stupid riots. Come on now. Anyway, but the report does acknowledge that first-time buyers did indicate that the reason why they are buying firearms is because they don't trust the police to be able to protect them. And they especially saw this when a lot of these police departments were overwhelmed by protesters. I would suspect that a lot of these people, like myself, are concerned about the fact that certain cities, like Austin, has defunded their police departments and has resulted in fewer police officers on the streets. So there's also the fact that in general, when a Democrat takes over the White House, gun sales go up because we know Democrats want your guns, right? And especially this president, he straight out said it. He has a very aggressive anti-gun agenda. So it makes sense. It's one of the reasons that's motivating me. Now, why have I decided to take this step? Now, I'm going to be honest and admit to a lot of stupidity and Sesame Street thinking. I was always planning on doing it. Like I always knew at some point that I would. I had been putting it off for a long time. And, part of it is because you guys know where I'm from. I'm from Southern California. And we are genetically predisposed to not being into guns like that for some reason, especially if you come from like Southern California and let's say the Bay Area, everywhere in between that, then you're good with guns, even though California doesn't want you to have them, so they make it very difficult. But it wasn't something I really thought about until I got out here to Texas. But the reason, if I'm going to be honest about this, there is a reason why I've been putting it off. And I'm going to say at the forefront, I always knew that this reason is completely irrational. It makes no sense, and it is purely emotional. So I am self-aware on this. I put it off because I don't want to think about the possibility that I might be in a situation in which my life would be in danger. Nobody wants to think about that. And for most first-time buyers, that is the reason why they get it. Like, buying a gun is buying something that you hope you never, ever have to use. And nobody wants to think about a situation where they could be killed. It's actually one of the reasons why people don't do their estate planning. Like, they don't get their last will and testament done because they don't want to think about the fact that they're going to die at some point. But in this situation, this isn't dying of old age. This is a situation of dying because some nut job wanted to get froggy. So that's why I've been putting it off. But I'm just like, why? There's no reason. Just get the damn thing. And so during the Solutionary Summit, I got to spend some time doing some firearm handling safety stuff with Maj Touré. They had a yacht party on Sunday, on this past Sunday, and part of that was learning, medical procedures or first aid to give emergency aid to somebody who gets hurt. But another part of it was firearm safety, learning how to handle the weapon. So I learned about trigger safety. I learned the 4 rules, and he had fake guns, cert guns, and so we handled those and kind of got a little primer on it. And you know what? I just figured, I just need to do this. I mean, and also affordability was a thing too. But now I'm in a better position to where I can afford it. So I'm like, why not? Also, again, here in Austin, the crime rate is going up a lot. Now, Austin is still one of the safest cities in the country. I'm not trying to make it sound like it's, Southside Chicago, but crime is going up. And in large part, it's because they defunded their police department and we have fewer police officers on the street. We don't have enough. But I'm also doing it. So that's one reason: safety, self-defense. Another reason is because why shouldn't I? Why not? It's protected by our Constitution. It's a right that's protected by the Constitution. I've been watching gun videos almost nonstop since Sunday, really. And I watched Klein Noir. I've always liked Klein Noir. I'm sure you all know who he is. And he said, having the Second Amendment and not using it is like having a trust fund and not ever spending any of it. So like I said, why the hell not? And then there's also the issue of tyranny. I mean, I know a lot of people on the left will blow that off. Oh, you're not going to be able to defeat the federal government. Yeah, okay, we're leaving Afghanistan not having affected any real change. So, I mean, anyway, I digress. But why not? I am also buying it for fun. I mean, it always seemed like a fun thing to do. Like the whole Pew Pew community, it seems like they have a lot of fun. They love what they do. They're very passionate. Gun owners are so passionate that they will jump on the opportunity to help somebody like myself who's more of a beginner and is thinking about buying a gun. I was literally on the flight on the way back from Miami, back to Austin, and I had a bunch of gun videos downloaded on my iPad. And I'm watching them, and the flight attendant comes up and he's looking and he's like, "Oh, what kind of gun is that? Is that a Stoger such and such, blah, 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 blah?" I was like, yeah, it is. He's like, "Oh, okay. Is that the gun that you're going to get?" This guy, we talked for 15 to 20 minutes, and he answered all my questions that I had about getting a gun and all that stuff. He was excited. He was so excited just to talk to me about guns, especially with me being a beginner to this whole thing. And you guys have probably seen me tweeting about it, and I'll be tweeting more about it because you guys are on this journey with me, and it's awesome. So yeah, it seems like fun. I want to go to the shooting range. I want to do all the exercises. It seems like a lot of fun. So those are the reasons why I have decided to take this step. I have not decided what gun I'm getting yet. If you have your recommendations, they are more than welcome. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm trying to see what other people think, and I'm watching these videos to get an idea of the guns that I want to try. I don't think I'm going to be a Glock guy, honestly. I don't. It seems kind of basic. Everybody does Glock. That's not the reason why. I've held a Glock before, and it fits my hand okay, but it's a little awkward. So I think when I shoot it, it's not going to be as good as some of the others that I'm considering. And just so you know, in case you haven't been watching me on Twitter, I'm considering the Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0. I am considering Sig Sauer P320. I've also been looking at Springfield XD, and I'm sure there will be other guns that come up too. I'll also try shooting the Glock 19 too. But yeah, one of my concerns is, how it fits in my hand. I'm a big guy, so I've got long fingers. I've got bigger hands, and I have to be able to get my hands around that thing to be able to shoot it well. So when I'm looking, I'm seeing that those are the guns that might be best for me. And again, I'm not really going to decide until after I shoot. So I could totally have my expectations subverted. I may end up going for the Glock because it's the best for me if I shoot it and it feels the best. I know that's the advice people give, but I like hearing from other people to see what they like, because then I can actually look and see, oh, well, might that work for me? Well, maybe I should try it out. So it is going to be a process. I'm not just going to go out and get this thing tomorrow. I'm doing a lot of research because this is a very big decision. It's very important. So I want to make sure I do it the right way. I do not want to regret my first gun purchase. I'm going to have more down the road, I'm sure. But still, I want to make sure I do this right. I want to make sure I get trained on it. I want to, have an instructor at least show me the basics of how to shoot, all that great stuff. And I want to know everything that I need to know. I want to know how Texas laws work. I mean, we do have constitutional carry now, but one of my followers pointed out it's probably still a good idea to get that license to carry, because if I want to go to a different state, which I have been traveling a lot lately, then I want to be able to carry there too. So I'm excited. This will be a cool trip, a cool journey. And I am excited to find out what my first one will be. So what do you guys think? Let's see. Yeah, you guys are excited about the gun thing. Guns. Yeah. Okay, so live action catalogs crisis centers across the country. Okay, I'm going to look more into that. Why not? Yes, genetically predisposed. I'm telling you, it's in our blood. If you're born in Southern California, yeah. And I never hated guns, to be fair. I didn't hate guns. I just never considered it for myself. It just didn't occur to me, really. Oh my gosh, yes. I love gun videos, and they're so addictive. Yes, you are right. They are addictive. I've probably watched like between 20 and 25 already, and I'm still going. I spent some time today watching while I was doing my writing. And yes, Texas has constitutional carry. Y'all are laughing, but it is the damn truth. People from Southern Cal are not predisposed towards firearms, with certain exceptions. Dude, you're right, man. It's true. I want to try the Shield Plus so bad. Somebody did bring that up to me. And also the 6-hour P365. I think I'll probably try it, but I think it's going to be too small. I'm afraid of dropping it. And also the smaller ones have more of a recoil, so which makes it harder to shoot accurately. I want to learn how to shoot well, and then maybe I'll get one of those if I can actually hold on to them. But again, there are other guns that I can carry that are bigger. Yeah, shooting is fun too. Yeah, that's I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. I am prepared to kill or cause bodily harm. I'm not going to read that out loud because YouTube will ban this channel. To anyone who tries to hurt my family, yeah, well, I agree. Yeah, Kalai Noir is one you should listen to. Yeah, and it's funny because I only watched one of his, but I've watched some of his stuff before, so I'm probably going to dive into his channel too. I really like what's his name, Honest Outlaw. That guy is solid. I feel like I learn a lot when I watch his videos. Maj will be able to recommend less dodgy makers too. Yeah, we were talking about it, and he was answering my questions too. So he's very knowledgeable, very good on this stuff, and he did a very good job teaching that course. Because I wasn't the only one who hadn't dealt with guns anymore. Actually, Sharice Lane as well. So, it was a SIRT gun again. So it has like the laser sight when you pull the trigger and all that. But yeah, it was great. What else we got? I have the 365 XL. My husband likes it. I don't for my smaller hands. Yeah. You see, the XL would be the one that I would consider if I were going to go 365 because that is bigger, and the grip is a little bit longer. Let's see. Deagle. I don't know what that is. You got to tell me. Try a 357 Magnum revolver. I'm not doing a revolver, damn it. Pastor Daryl Scott was on Twitter making fun of me. He's trying to get me killed. He wants me to get like that dirty, hairy revolver. suggested a sawed-off shotgun for my first gun. Yeah, I don't think he likes me very much. I'm gonna have to talk with Pastor about that. He should know better. I've been on his show. I mean, why would he want somebody to take me out? But revolvers are kind of badass, so I'm sure at some point I'll own one. If you've seen the movie Snatch, the one that they use, the one that what's that guy's name? Tony Four Fingers uses in the robbery at the beginning of the movie. That looks sweet. I might have to get one of those at some point. Revolvers do not leave shells. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I'm still not getting one though. Not for my first gun. All right. So yeah, I'll be talking more about this. I'll be telling you more about what I learned and all that jazz. And again, if you have suggestions or anything else, let me know. But until next time, keep your minds free. Oh, wait. Thank you, Megan Cox, for the super chat. I appreciate you. You're wonderful. And I will see you all next time.